Welcome to ST Reviews, and my name is Sash. You may have seen one of my recent videos where I actually got my hands on the Swatch Cross Amiga MoonSwatch, and it was something that I was chasing for a long time. And in my search for that ideal moon watch, I thought, well, this is it. You know, it's based on a classic Amiga that landed on the moon, and you know, it's the be all and end all. But that was until I come across a current investment, which I'll take you through shortly. So when I picked up the MoonSwatch, and just prior, I did a lot of research on a lot of these, moon watches, and that was the one, right? So Amiga, made it up on Apollo 15, I think it was, and it was the be all and end all of all watches, with a bit of history behind it. And when Swatch released the MoonSwatch, it broke the internet. It disrupted the watch world, and it was the watch to have. And till today, it still is. It's still very hard to get. However, when I did get my hands on it, I was slightly disappointed, and I'm not going to go into detail to why. And you can watch my other review on it. But let's just say that it wasn't what I expected. And perhaps my expectations were high, considering that it was still just under 400 Australian dollars. And, you know, for all you out there, yes, I know that's not a very expensive watch, but in the scheme of things, it's also not a cheap watch. You know, I could have got something cheaper that was a better quality watch, but I wanted a MoonSwatch. So in that research and in the time that I spent looking up some of these watches, I came across a watch that sort of really blew me away. That's the Bulova Lunar Pilot. So the story behind the Bulova Lunar Pilot is that in, I think it was August the 2nd, 1971, one of the astronauts that flew on Apollo 15, and I'm not going to go through the whole history of it, but basically an astronaut was meant to wear an Amiga watch up on the moon, and the story goes that he did wear his Amiga watch, and when he was out there, I don't know, planting his vegetables, whatever he was doing, the glass popped out of the watch, and he then reached back inside the cabin, let's call it the cabin, and put on his personally owned watch, which was a Bulova Lunar Pilot, which was supplied to him by Bulova as his personal watch. And the story goes that that watch then survived without any hiccups. He came back to Earth and put it up for sale after a short period of time. So the astronaut David Scott, who wore that watch in 2015, ended up selling that watch, and it was a chronograph, automatic, and it fetched close to, I believe, $1.6 million. That's right, $1.6 million. And my understanding is then Bulova saw the success and he thought, well, this is the other moon watch, and they then went and manufactured a lot more of those watches, however, in a different variant. They then came up with the quartz equivalent, and that's the one that I purchased. So that's the quick summary. The longer summary was trying to get your hands on one, and the one that I actually wanted was the Bulova Lunar Pilot that came in with the two straps. So it came with a leather strap and the NATO, which is quite hard to get. So much so that when I reached out to an online retailer here in Australia, they said, yeah, we should have some more in stock in approximately May next year. And I thought, you know what, bugger that. I want that watch and I want it now. Reason being was that I got the MoonSwatch. It didn't give me the satisfaction that I was expecting, and I wanted something a little bit more solid. So let me show you at a closer look what I did get for my money. So first things first, for anyone that's been hiding under a rock and isn't aware of what the MoonSwatch is from Swatch, well, it's this one here, right? Now, just on a side note, I had my band replaced on this watch, and this is, I would say, similar to what would have been on the original MoonSwatch, is the larger band. Because of my very, well, let's just say on my largest wrist, this is the strap that was replaced by Swatch, which took about a month. And as you can see, it's a hell of a lot bigger than what you may have seen on the original ones. and it does fit a little bit more comfortably on my arm. Now that is the mission to Earth that you're seeing, the bioceramic MoonSwatch, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about a Bulova and what my thoughts on it, and do I regret buying it. So without further ado, I'll grab that one. The first thing that I appreciated is that when I got the MoonSwatch, it came on, well, came in this very very average cardboard box. So as you can see and probably hear, just a basic cardboard box that you're very familiar with. Now, this is what arrived from the Bulova watch. Now I can tell you now, just in hand, this box weighs a ton. It weighs as much as a box should weigh for a quality watch. And what I mean by that is, if I have a look at some of my other Swiss watches, which this is not a Swiss watch, they come in very similar packaging. So this one in particular comes with a wooden box, which is very, very solid and satisfying to open. And once you open that, give me 1 second. And once you open that, you find yourself with a beautiful and very, very neat looking Bulova Lunar Pilot. So my first impressions when I opened this box was, holy guacamole, this watch is freaking awesome. It looks $1 million, right? It looks nothing like its plastic friend, but more of resembling a quality made watch. If I take the watch out, the box is actually quite well made. So when you pull it apart, it has all the warranty information and bits and pieces. The model I've got here is the 96A225, that one there, and yada yada yada. Anyway, that's the box. Let's move on to the watch. So what you've got here is a 45 millimeter watch, and that was the case. And if you watch a lot of the reviews online, they would say that, you know, one of the biggest bugbears for this watch is basically the fact that it's so large. Now, in my opinion, I think it's a perfectly sized watch. Granted, I've got, you know, bigger wrists, and it sits quite nice, but others might find it a bit big, especially if you've got small wrists. You've got 3 subdials in the chronograph. You've got the 1/10 of a second, 60th of a second, and then the 60-minute built in there. And you've got, I'm not sure if you can actually see in this video, but there is a lot of dial depth. So the tachymeter itself is raised, and the subdials step down slightly under the main dial. Just trying to give you a bit of a close-up shot of that to see if you can pick it up or not. And you can really see that the difference on the eye. You'll find that the actual main dial is what I would say a bit of a matte black or a satin black, whereas the subdials have got more of a glossy finish in them as well. So the main thing here is that it is a quartz watch, right? It's not like the original automatic, and neither is the Swatch watch. That's also a quartz watch itself, although the original Omega is automatic. But there's quartz watches and then there's quartz watches, and I think that's where the difference is here. So what you've got in this one, in this particular model, is a high performance quartz technology, and it's at 262 kilohertz. And what that means is that a traditional quartz uses a crystal vibrating at 32,768 cycles per second, whereas this beast, the high frequency Bulova vibrates at 8 times, the rate of the traditional one at 262,144 quartz vibrating, etc., etc. Now, what does it really mean? Well, this is something that got me going. All right, so if you have a look at the swatch, when I start the chronograph, you will see the second hand just ticking away as a quartz watch does. You know, tick, 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 you get the gist. In the Bulova, have a look at the second hand once I start it. It resembles an automatic. Well, in my opinion, it does anyway. It's a much cleaner sweep, and you're not seeing that traditional tick, tick, tick on the seconds, which this Bulova does. So it does give you a bit of a mechanical like sweep, which I thoroughly enjoy. Now the other thing, and probably the main thing that gets me on this watch, is its accuracy. The accuracy is rated on this watch at plus or minus 10 seconds per year. That's right, per year. Unlike a traditional quartz watch, which is about plus or minus 15 seconds per month. So the accuracy on this watch is, well, second to none, no pun intended. This particular model that I picked has a bit of a, well, it's not really a NATO strap, but you know, it is a woven strap with a little bit of leather detailing here, and that makes those holes, you know, a lot stronger when you buckle it up. And it's got the Bulova stamp there, and also on the buckle here as well, which is very hard to see and focus on. Anyway, it's there, take my word for it. It is a stainless steel, a very solid watch. It does have a sapphire crystal, unlike this bad boy here, which has got a, well, some sort of a probably plastic screen that it does require you know, some polishing as you scratch it often, and therefore I don't wear it too often. One thing that I'll let you know straight away that I'm not a massive fan of, which you don't notice it if you see it from top down, but if I turn the watch sideways, you will notice right here, if I can just focus on it, the thickness of that sapphire crystal. As you may or may not be able to see, it's, I think, a good sort of 1.5 to 2 mil raised, which you know, which I think is asking for a disaster of, you know, giving it a bit of a scratch or a bump somewhere. It does have a matte finish on the, if I just put my hand under there so you can see it, it does have a bit of a matte finish there, but you know, I haven't scratched it yet, but I dare say that's something that is a possibility on this. The other thing that this model does not have, which some of the other Bulova Lunar pilots do, is a date. Now, I love a date on a watch because I can never remember the date, but then again, neither does that, right? So if I'm going to compare the two, it's pretty even in that space. So the strap itself is a two-piece strap. Now, mind you, I've since ordered another 3 or 4 straps, and some of them are the, let's just call them a homage to the original NATO straps, which are very similar to the ones on the Swatch, which this watch also does come in one of the models, which I don't have, so I have ordered some separately. Now, what I really like about this watch is the inscribed tribute at the back to the Apollo 15, with specific location where it was actually worn. So if I can just try and get it a bit closer. There. So the big chrono buttons here, as you can see, are quite a decent touch, right? a very comfortable button. And my understanding is that these buttons were made that size so that you can wear it on top of your spacesuit and be able to press it with gloves. So it is a very large, if I just show you now, button that clicks in. And I actually like it. It's very responsive, it's very clicky. So not that I'm going to wear a spacesuit in the near or distant future, but it's good to have. And you know what, maybe in the winter, and to be honest, it's not very often I use a chronograph anyway, unless I'm checking my parking timer and so forth. But nevertheless, it is what it is. Now, I just want to show it to you on hand. And before I do that, let me just make one thing very, very clear. The weight of this watch and the weight of this watch is, well, it's not comparable. Like, we're sort of talking, and I can get a scale, but you know, we're talking a plastic toy that you get with your McHappy Meal at McDonald's, so your kids' meal at McDonald's, versus a fine quality instrument in a Bulova. So it's chalk and cheese when it comes to weight and feel in hand. Now, you know, maybe this would be better if you're after a light watch that wear a long time and you don't want to feel it. But I'm the type of person that likes to wear a watch that feels like I'm wearing a watch to remind me that I'm wearing a watch. And wearing this watch here, to me personally, it's a very elegant watch. It's a classic watch. It's a sporty watch. I can get away with wearing it with my shorts, my polo, with my suit. It's just a very, very good looking watch. And this is now the Bulova Lunar Pilot on my wrist. Now, like I said, I do have a reasonably large wrist, and you can see the you may just be able to see with reflection, it does have the the reflective coating on the sapphire crystal, which is quite nice in direct sunlight. So it does reflect the light. And I mean, you tell me what you think, but I think if you look at it even from this distance, where it's probably hard to see on the camera what brand it is, it does look like a quality timepiece. It looks solid, it looks big, it looks expensive, and it feels solid too. And one thing that again I'll raise is that, you know, from this distance, you will notice the raised sapphire crystal, the white line you're seeing there. So it is very obvious. That's my only thing I really dislike about this watch. But when I look at it this way, I don't notice it. So therefore, I start to like it again. Yeah, it's decent, right? It's big. It says hello, look at me, but it doesn't say hello and stare at me. The reflective coating on it is pretty cool. I like the blue tint. At the bottom, it just, it's well finished. I'm not a huge fan of these type of bands, because they do, once you get them wet, it does take some time to dry, and will go through your shirt and so forth. But first world problems. And if I just now show you the comparison of the MoonSwatch on hand, I'm like, they sort of look like that. Now, if I had the Mission to the Moon, which is the closer replica, well, I won't call it a replica, the homage to the original Omega, it'll be a little bit more comparable, but nevertheless, the weight, the size, it's really, really chalk and cheese, in my opinion. So now that you've seen both the watches, what do you think? Let me know in your comments what your thoughts are and what you would prefer. And let's just quickly touch on the price too. Now, the MoonSwatch, as most of you will know, currently retails, or you may not know, here in Australia for $380 at Swatch directly. Can't get them anywhere else, can't order them online, yada, yada, yada. $380. $380 gets you about, I don't know, a few grams of weight, a bit of a story. The fact that you can't get one makes it a bit more exciting, but that's about all. Now, for a slight extra, the Bulova, the Lunar Pilot in particular. Now, granted, I don't own any Bulova watches. I didn't even know what Bulova was until I came across the Lunar Pilot. So this is not a reflection or an opinion on all their watches, but this particular model. Now this model here, you can get it sites for about 499 Australian dollars. So you're sort of talking about a 380 for a, you know, $110 difference. So, you know, would you go and spend an extra $110 for the Bulova? In my opinion, hell yeah. It is chalk and cheese. You know, if I went back in time, if I had to choose one or the other, I would have gone the Bulova any day of the week. I do enjoy the Speedmaster Mission to Earth in this instance. I think it's a great watch to have in your collection. I don't regret getting it, but I can tell you now, I did intend to get the Mission to the Moon. That was the original Speedmaster / MoonSwatch. There's got so many names that I actually wanted, but you can't get your hands on it, just like you can't today, right? And my thoughts were, I'll get this Earth, the Mission to Earth, and then I'll get the Mission to the Moon as well. And once I purchased the Bulova, I actually genuinely do not want it anymore. So much so that when I did go back to Swatch to replace the strap to get the longer one, I was asked by a friend, you know, would you go and, if they have it in stock now, would you then go spend your, you know, $380 on another MoonSwatch, the Mission to the Moon? And my answer was no. I'd be tempted, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't get it because I'm now happy. I'm satisfied. I actually have a watch that looks like something that you could wear on the moon. I mean, look, if I was to go on the moon tomorrow and, you know, I took my Virgin rocket up to the moon because I could, which watch would I take? Definitely the Bulova over the Speedmaster or the Swatch watch, because it does feel like something that would survive a bit of a beating. I don't have to worry about it because Richard Branson's not going to be taking me up to the moon in the near future, but I suppose my point was that, you know, the $110 extra that you'd be spending on this watch, I think is actually worth it. I feel like I am wearing a piece of history, perhaps a more unknown story and unknown history, but you know, it is exciting and it is a good conversation starter, because I can tell you now, and this is honest truth, no one has complimented me on wearing the Omega Cross Swatch. People that are in the know of watches, they appreciate the fact that it's hard to get and it's a, you know, it's a nice looking watch, but it's not something that someone's going, oh wow, look at this. However, with the Bulova, I have had a few more compliments, and there is a nice story behind it, as I mentioned earlier. So that was my thoughts on the Bulova Lunar Pilot. Love it, enjoy wearing it. It's definitely on my rotation list, and I highly, highly recommend it for anyone that's looking for something that's a little bit different, yet looks classical at the same time. Thank you very much for tuning in to ST Reviews. My name is Sash. Take care and brush your hair. Goodbye.